Every day, millions of people go online to search for local businesses. Does your small business show up? When you create a website on WordPress.com, you make it easier for your customers to find you, to connect with you, to hear how you can help them. Your business needs an online home. It needs a WordPress.com website. You don't need experience setting up websites. WordPress guides you through the process from start to finish. They take care of the technical stuff, so it's easy to get your site up and running. Their customer support team is made up of WordPress experts eager to help you get the most from your site. They're available to help 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and weekends. Plans start at just $4 a month, and all WordPress plans include a custom domain name for the life of the plan. Come see why 28% of all websites run on WordPress. Get started today with 15% off any new plan purchase. Go to WordPress.com/Golic to create your website and find the plan that's right for you. That's WordPress.com/Golic for 15% off your brand new website. WordPress.com/Golic.
Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Woohoo! And welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo. Glad you are here with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We, as always, are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. We all right? Everybody good?
All good, man. Midweek, we're all bracing for the big storm here in the Northeast coming up tomorrow.
Seems to be a vacillating forecast on how much
does.
snow we're getting.
And you know what I can't stand here, and I'm sure others as well. I can't stand the weather people's giddiness.
Oh, yeah.
Just how bad the weather's going to be and how giddy they are.
Pants all around their ankles right now. They're really
awful.
just loving life.
It's
sick and twisted because we're going to be sitting there because the main place that we all go to when we see this is shoveling, right?
Yeah.
Like you just think, all right, how much am I going to have to shovel? Those weather people aren't thinking about that. They're not thinking about the everyman. No. They're concerned with themselves, and it's despicable.
But this is like the playoffs for them.
It is.
You
it's
get
exactly
a big
right.
storm, that's what it is.
Got to go in early today.
We get geeked up for the NFL postseason and the college football playoff. It's sort of the same thing. By the way, just to show you how cold it's been in the Northeast and in other places, by the way, across the country.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I was driving into work today, and I realized it was 6 degrees warmer this morning than it was yesterday, and it was 1.
Isn't that amazing?
It was 1 this morning.
At least
and it was 6 degrees warmer than it was
Here's
yesterday.
the thing, though. The weather people get geeked up about bad weather.
Yes.
We get geeked up about good stuff.
Oh, I don't know. We like cold weather playoff games in the NFL. We do like that.
You guys like that.
But
I've been over here in Team Good Weather on everything.
Yeah.
I'm 72 and sunny till I die.
But I mean, it's playoffs we're talking about. It's good basketball we're talking about. It's
totally
streaks in the NHL.
Throwing
we're
your
talking
highlighter.
about. Throwing my highlighter. We're talking about good things in sports, not how much snow we all have to shovel in a day and a half.
Yeah, it's
I
going to be
hate those people. I hate you all.
Well,
not in a bad way.
Live, local, and late breaking. We'll get the Doppler 5 Extra Super Sonar Super 3D radar weather for you and get that updated for you. So that's what's really up and down. They're talking about this maybe as far down as Florida.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an ugly one.
I just needed to clear out of Atlanta because I'm hoping for like the incremental bump up to your point. 6 degrees warmer this morning.
Right.
If it can be in the 30s in Atlanta this weekend when we're down there, I'm down there. It's oh yeah,
we win.
You pop the top.
Yeah. We're
Easy.
walking off the plane in shorts and a t-shirt,
flip flops.
Are you kidding me? Sun rays hit me. Yeah.
Unlike Keenan Allen last Sunday, who was playing in L.A. in a hoodie.
Yeah,
that was quite interesting. We have a lot to get to today. We got Isaiah Thomas's debut for the Cleveland Cavs.
Yes, we'll
get to that. Nick Saban made some more interesting comments about some things that he's not happy with the college football playoff. The numbers came out for the semifinals.
Yes, they did.
We'll get to that. We have some more surprising NFL coaching news. Marvin Lewis is sticking around. We'll get into all of that. And on the guest today, we have John Gruden. Will join us talking about the wild card game as well as maybe some team called the Wokeland Waiters.
Maybe to see what's going on in that situation.
We may talk about that. Kyle Williams will join us of the Buffalo Bills.
Hell yeah.
In
big
the playoffs
scoring
for the first time. The big man touchdown that helped salt away that victory. Kirk Herbstreit will join us as well to talk about the College Football National Championship. And Brian Windhorst will be with us as well, our ESPN NBA insider, as we get set to talk about what it means for the Cavaliers now that Isaiah is back and how they will manage his minutes going forward after dealing with the hip issue that has kept him out of, or did keep him out of the first 36 games. So what we're saying is it's a happy, happy hump day. Lots to get to. Let's get started with.
It's time for Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
All right, we start off the top in college basketball. 10th-ranked Kansas lost its third home game of the season last night, falling 85-73 to 18th-ranked Texas Tech. Jayhawks had just lost 3 of 83 home games total over the previous 5 seasons.
That's a tough call. Now, one of the losses came at the Sprint Center in Kansas City. It's considered a home game. It's kind of like when UConn plays on campus or at the Hartford.
Or when the Packers used to play in Milwaukee as opposed to Lambeau.
Exactly. So they lost 2 at their actual home, but 3 home games overall. As you mentioned, 80-3 at home in the last previous 5 seasons, and all 3 coming this year. That's a tough call when you dominate that much at home, the expectation at home, and this was an 85-73 game against a ranked opponent in Texas Tech, but still, when you have that much dominance at home and to drop all 3 already.
Well, when the standard is winning the Big 12 every year, and that it is eerily reminiscent of, I remember when we played Oklahoma in football back when Bob Stoops' home record there, I think they had lost 4 or 5 games when we went down there and beat them in 12 up until that point. So you understand as a team coming in how much that means. That's one of those we rarely appreciate in the moment as athletes, historical significance. That was one I remember in the time going, this is special. So for Texas Tech on the other side to come in there and steal a win regardless of where this program is huge.
Texas Tech, by the way, 2-0 in the conference right now. All right. There you go.
Hey, now.
How about this? Coming into this year, Bill Self was 220-10 in Allen Fieldhouse in his 14 seasons in Lawrence. He's now 226-12. And again, that third home loss, as you said, was in the Sprint Center in Kansas City. We continue.
Off the top.
People are leaving the desert. First Bruce Arians and now Carson Palmer. The quarterback announced his retirement after 14 seasons. He played for the Cardinals, Bengals, and Raiders over the course of his year, said you just know about when it was time to walk away from the game.
One of 4 quarterbacks in NFL history to throw at least 100 touchdown passes for 2 different NFL teams, Cardinals and Bengals. The others, Peyton Manning, Colts and Broncos, Fran Tarkington, Giants and Vikings, and Kurt Warner, Rams and Cardinals. So, he going over had the injury bug, obviously, the last couple of years. An interesting way where when he left Cincinnati, didn't want to play there anymore. Was talking about, well, I don't have to play. I got $50 million in the bank. By the way, the biggest number for him is I think he made $173 million or something like that in his career.
Decent. Good for him.
Good number for you. Good job. And ending out in the desert is great as well, where I'm going to end up making a lot less money than he's made out in the desert. But
you're like making $50 million a year, so it doesn't matter.
Who?
You. That's what I was told.
Let me hold some.
Yeah.
It's all coming to you.
All I got to say is if Sydney's up and listening right now, she'll be really, really happy to hear that.
Please do not sell her that lie, because that makes you officially worth more to her dead than
really does. Most
$1
passing touchdowns by a quarterback never to start a Super Bowl. Warren Moon third at that 291, Carson Palmer second at 294, and Phillip Rivers first at 342 for that. But obviously a good career for Carson
Is that the
Palmer.
ultimate list as a quarterback you don't want to be
don't
on?
want to
if you think about it, that's saying really good things about your career, but I would imagine every quarterback's like, Don't be on that list.
Yeah,
that's like leading the minor leagues in home runs. That's like being Crash Davis.
It's like being Marvin Lewis.
We'll get to that actually. Nicely done.
Oh wow!
He
went there.
We'll sort of bring that up a little bit. We'll talk about it more. But Marvin Lewis, a lot of people thought that he was going to be done. I mean, it had been reported that he was going to walk away and look for something else, and lo and behold, he gets a 2-year contract extension.
That's going to be. We'll get into that one.
We will get into that one as well. But good thing for Carson is that. Well, I think Junior on your show. What was it that he had the best winning percentage of any Heisman Trophy winning quarterback?
Yeah, Hembo, I need you to look that up because I think technically Cam Newton might have more wins already or maybe close in that category as a former Heisman winner.
He has the most wins, not the best record.
The most wins of a former Heisman
wins.
Which is impressive and shows you kind of the burden of that award, how much it really is about the college career and not projecting forward. But for him, marry that up with a lot of pro success.
And by the way, the disembodied voice of Hembo. Good to have you on the show.
Good to have you, Hembo.
Welcome back. Brother.
Always good to have Hembo on the show.
No baseball talk.
No. Give me the White Sox lineup 1 through 9 and their war against all replacements. Thank you.
Off the top.
Meanwhile,
the war against replacements.
It is a war against replacements. We're against that stat. We are against that stat.
Oh, boy.
Meanwhile, with Tuesday's win against the Knicks, Spurs head coach Greg Popovich moved into sole possession of 5th on the all-time NBA coaching wins list, breaking a tie with George Karl.
Yeah, George Karl. Next up is Pat Riley. So Popovich sitting there at 5th. Pat Riley, he's 34 away from Riley. 44 games left in the regular season for them. So if he goes 34-10, 35-10, he moves into 4th. Obviously, he's going to keep coaching. He's 34 away from Riley at fourth. He's 45 away from Jerry Sloan at third. So that's in the very near future. And then it gets a little more distant. Second is Lenny Wilkens. He's 156 away from Wilkins, and Don Nelson leads the way. He's 159 away from Don Nelson. So he'll be getting up to third by next year at some point. But this guy has been ridiculous in what he has done since coming out of the management group there and onto the floor and coaching.
It really is amazing. Obviously, the longevity and the amount of success. They made the playoffs in all 20 years, 50 wins in all but one season, and that's because that season was shortened to only 50 games.
And they won 37 of those 50 games.
And didn't they win the championship that year?
Yeah.
Yes, they did. So it's still managing to do it on the top end, and really was biding all his time to get to this current time socially, because he has been in the forefront of NBA coaches popping off in press conferences about the current state of affairs in the United States.
Yes, he is.
It seems like he was tailor-made. He was one of those guys that was born too early and thankfully made it and got to sustain the success into the time he deserves now.
He's getting it all in now, isn't he? Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah. The interesting thing there is Popovich is an unbelievable coach. There's no doubt about that. And with the things he's done in a small market city, San Antonio is not one of the bigger cities in the NBA, where he has a very different thought mentality as opposed to a lot of coaches. Are we in the golden era of coaches right now? When you have Bill Belichick, who I think most people would agree is maybe the best coach ever in any sport of all time.
He's getting him and Nick Saban.
That's my point.
Yeah.
You have Nick Saban, you have Greg Popovich, and you have Bill Belichick right now. And I know we're all about the players, and we should be, but when you look at these guys and what they've accomplished in their careers, I mean, obviously you have John Wooden with what he did at UCLA, and we understand what Red Auerbach did in a different time. It was a different time where there weren't as many teams that could be invited into a championship event, whether it's the NCAA or the NBA playoffs, and compete. So those numbers will always stand alone. They will always stand alone. But are we looking at maybe across sports with the depth and competitive balance that we have in all of these sports? Are we looking at maybe the golden age of head coaches in these sports right now?
Well, I think especially when you take into account free agency, you're just dealing with a lot of different circumstances in all this. And you remember the guys coming up too now. I mean, when it's all said and done, resume-wise, what are we going to talk about Steve Kerr as? A guy who has a chance to amass as much success as anyone else and deserves credit for setting a tone there and creating an environment for all the success we've seen in Golden State.
And certainly what comes along with that is, well, look at the players you have. Well, right. you know, I always remember hearing that about Phil Jackson. Well, he had Michael Jordan. Well, any coach who won a number of championships had great players. Yeah. Okay? What I think is coming to an end is the longevity that we're seeing out of these coaches. Is guys both in college and pro staying, I mean, as we come off of Snyder going for a 27th year.
78 years old, Bill Snyder going to be the head coach of Kansas State.
Absolutely a fantastic story there. But they're way more the exception than the rule for college and pro in all sports that want to change coaches over and over and over again. There's just no patience unless you're in Cincinnati.
Yeah, when Marvin Lewis. But it is interesting. Like you mentioned Phil Jackson, and obviously his rings are ridiculous, and people say, well, he had Michael Jordan. Well, Doug Collins had Michael Jordan. You know, he didn't win anything. Yeah. And now, to be fair, Michael Jordan didn't win anything until Scottie Pippen showed up.
That's exactly
so you can't just say you got one great player.
You can always connect those things. But to your point,
I mean, it is interesting to see these three guys in different sports completely dominating in an era where you're not supposed to be able to dominate.
To your point, I think what's ending over, and I don't know when it has kind of ended, is the longevity. You just don't see coaches get that much leash anymore.
No. It's continuity, and it's what happens when you flood any system with the amount of money that's at stake in all of this for a lot of the people making the decisions.
Yeah, well, it's just interesting. Pop is just a guy that has just been a consistent winner in an era where he didn't have, I mean, he had Tim Duncan, I get that, but he didn't have a LeBron. He didn't have a Michael Jordan. He had some really, really good players that he's built around, and and look, if Kawhi Leonard doesn't get hurt last year in the first game of the Western Conference Finals, you don't. I mean, they were shellacking the Warriors in Game 1.
The one thing I like about Popovich as well, that's a sport in the NBA where, let's be honest, the players run the show.
Correct.
The players want you out, you're out, except for a few, and Popovich is one of them.
That's exactly right. And to that point, again, with the lack of stability and the lack of longevity and the players having so much power in that sport, it speaks volumes to what he's been able to do. So congratulations to Pop, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Off the top.
Staying in the NBA, hey, the Cavs finally have the team they wanted to have at the beginning of the year. Isaiah Thomas, after missing the first 36 game of the year, made his Cleveland debut, scored 17 points in 19 minutes in the Cavs' win over Portland.
Yeah, they were good with Thomas on the floor when LeBron was off the floor, and vice versa. They outscored the Blazers 31-13 with Isaiah Thomas on and LeBron off. Remember, Isaiah came off the bench in this one. Eventually, he's going to be the starting point guard. He put up better numbers at the point guard position than what has gone on all year for the Cavaliers at the point guard position. But my thought has always been, take your time. He's sitting out tonight, and a lot of people are looking into that because it's against the Celtics, a game against the Celtics, but he's sitting out. I get it. Any athlete who's gone through any injury, especially as major as he's had coming back, it wasn't the game. They limited his minutes, and he did well with the 17 points in 19 minutes. But as you know, Mike, it's today. How does he feel today? Waking up after all that time off, playing an actual game, how does he come back after that injury and trying to get himself into basketball shape?
Yeah, the people are going to look at it because it's the Celtics and feel some type of way about it, but this is a timeline that they have been working. The training staff, they gave the game ball to the head trainer there last night for all the work that he's done helping Isaiah get back to this point. So they've had this plan in place. They understand what they want to do with this. And so the Celtics are a nameless gray face that happen to be on the second night of the back-to-back.
Yeah. By the way, again, not only is he not playing, they're not going to do the tribute video that so many NBA teams do when a player returns.
Right.
And that was, I think they talked to Isaiah about that.
They did, because he's not going to play, and he said it was more, he was getting crushed a little bit for that, but he said it's about my family as well, for them to enjoy. We all know the horrific situation in the playoffs last year with his sister passing away. So they're going to wait till he actually going to play in a game, and I completely understand why he's not playing in this game.
Yeah, and again, Isaiah Thomas, Brian Windhorst will join us later on in the show to talk about it. So Isaiah Thomas gave the Cavs the confidence to win last night because he had 17 points. I think the average for the point guard for the Cavs had been like 8.9.
It'd been not good, and he was good.
Yes, it was a lot to a little.
There you
analysis.
Go. And now it's much better because he's on the a lot, and the little had been the previous point guard play. So he gave him the confidence to win last night, just like the folks over at Quicken Loans. Brought to you by National Mortgage Lender Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. And again, we'll get into a little bit later on Golick and Wingo the situation with Isaiah Thomas and how they're going to sort of work him in and what the long-term team will look like. Because remember, at the start of the season, it was a little rough start for the Cavs after the win over the Celtics. Then they completely righted the ship, and now they're going to go through this process again with Isaiah and see how quickly they can get that thing going in the right direction, as they did last night against Portland. But we brought up Marvin Lewis because it had been widely speculated, again, by people here, including our own Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen, that once the season was over, I think 2 or 3 weeks with 2 or 3 weeks to go in the regular season, that Marvin Lewis was probably going to walk away from the Cincinnati Bengals after a 15-year run. And lo and behold, instead, Coach Marvin Lewis got a 2-year contract extension on Tuesday, trying once again now to get that one playoff win that he has not had in 15 seasons. Now, they have been to the playoffs 7 times, right? But 0-7 in the playoffs. However, people need to understand, when Marvin Lewis got to Cincinnati, people forget, because we're in a short-term memory society now, the Bengals were the Browns.
They were the Browns.
They were the current Browns.
Yep.
That's how bad they were. They were called the Bungles. They couldn't get out of their own way. They couldn't draft well. Nothing was working right. And he made them a respectable franchise that has been to the playoffs in 7 of 15 seasons, almost 50% of the time. But the one thing looming over him was that donut in the win column in the postseason. And our Stephen A. Smith, who, by the way, can now be heard nationally 1 to 3 on ESPN Radio, went on SportsCenter last night, and let's say he was having none of it.
As far as I'm concerned, Mike Brown and Cincinnati Bengals ownership has essentially given the city of Cincinnati the proverbial finger, told them to go kick rocks. We don't care what you think or how we feel because we're getting paid. Why? This is the 3rd team, lowest attendance in the league. Only the Chargers in LA at the StubHub Center and the winless Cleveland Browns have worse attendance than the Cincinnati Bengals. So the fan base is abandoning you. Your winning has abandoned. Your level of productivity has abandoned. And you still keep a job? It's disgraceful. There is no excuse for it. As far as I'm concerned, it's an abomination of the highest order when it comes to coaching, because what you're saying is you don't care about winning.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
I want to be clear about that, but there are some points.
Yes, there are.
That are valid in what Stephen A. was saying. And by the way, on the record thing, Marvin Lewis, often talked about, hey, you haven't won the playoff game, 0-7. Bengals only been favored in 2 of those games, 2013 against the Chargers, 2009 against the Jets. Kind of crazy things that happened. Of course, obviously, they they had that wild weekend game against the Steelers. That
right.
Sort of devolved into a street fight.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
With a couple of years ago. So we'll get into all of that.
Yeah.
Rolling through a Wednesday morning. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, which we love. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, which we also love. Lots to get to. Again, John Gruden will be coming up later. Kyle Williams of the Buffalo Bills will join us. Kirk Herbstreit will stop by, as will Brian Windhorst, and we'll get into much more about the Cavs and how they'll work in Isaiah Thomas going forward with Brian, with our ESPN NBA insider. But just before the break and before we played SportsCenter, guys, we were talking about the Marvin Lewis situation in Cincinnati. And again, it was widely reported, especially by people here, that thought Marvin Lewis was going to step away and maybe look at other options after the season ended. And, of course, the season ended with the Cincinnati Bengals pulling off an upset win over the Baltimore Ravens that got the Buffalo Bills into the playoffs, which set a whole different chain of events into effect, which we'll get into as well, what the Buffalo fans have been doing for Andy Dalton's foundation. It is phenomenal. You can't talk about that enough. But the idea that Marvin Lewis is back after 15 seasons where he went 0-7 in the postseason means what to you, Mike?
Well, I was a little surprised. I'm not going to lie. I mean, obviously, with all our reports, we thought it was going to be the end of the relationship there, maybe by Marvin's decision. But
right.
you never know if it's behind the scenes, if it's this, hey, do you want to step down because we may fire you, so maybe if you step down, it looks better that way. So we don't know what was going on there, but now we do. And he has the extension. And listen, I'm going to do what we always do here. We talk really nice about someone and then use the word but, right? Yeah. I mean, because we all love Marvin Lewis. He's been on the show a ton of times. He's so well respected around the league for what he's done. I don't think there's any question, and you brought up, and there are a lot of people that don't remember how bad Cincinnati was before he got there.
They were a joke before he got there.
Horrible. But he has gone 15 seasons there. He has gone to the playoffs 7 times, and he is 0-7. Now, on one side, I preach about longevity, i.e. see the Pittsburgh Steelers and their coaching staff, in giving you a chance to work through the highs and the lows. But here, there haven't been many highs. It's been pretty much all lows with not getting a victory in the playoffs. So I'm a little surprised at this, Mike. I'm not going to lie. I thought, and is the reason that they thought, okay, well, if we do this, there's so many other openings right now. There's so many other candidates. Do we think we can get somebody better, or do we just stay with what we have? And a lot of people, if you're in Cincinnati, I think you're feeling, well, you're deciding to stay with, basically from a record standpoint, mediocrity to lower, right? Either not making the playoffs or making the playoffs and losing in the first round. So why not try something, shake it up a little bit? It's been a long time. You can't say there hasn't been the chance to do something there. So I'm a little surprised at, okay, it's been a long, long time here. We're going to need to shake it up. Even if we don't have one particular person in mind, we need to go a different direction here.
And in an offseason where there are so many assistant coaches that are getting interviewed now and candidates that are out there, what are you telling your team, in addition that you're okay with mediocrity, is that we're okay with that because either we don't believe we're enough of a destination, we don't offer enough to one of these coaches to sway them from what might be quote-unquote a better job, or we're not willing to try to do that?
Well, the interesting thing there is Paul Gunther, the defensive coordinator who had long been with the Bengals and was rumored to be a guy that may be replacing Marvin Lewis, is now going off to somewhere else. He's looking for another job, because I think there was a thought in his mind, at least, that he would be the successor to Marvin Lewis, and that's not going to happen for at least 2 more years.
Right.
Well, and I think you could say that for a fair amount of the coordinators that have probably come through there, just because of Marvin Lewis's longevity and the lack of top-end success. Like, you look at this, and it's just someone who's just sort of content to be there as a franchise. This is less about Marvin Lewis. He is what he is. You can only control as an organization how you react to that. And you mentioned all those other places, the coaches have championships to back it up. We've seen that there is enough of a high to say, all right, because in any good process, you don't want to be too result-driven to the point where you say, all right, if we enjoy and we believe in the foundation and the way that we build our team and the tone this coach sets, then I'm fine with working through some of the pain and all this. But when you've never seen the process that he's laid forth, net results that are worthy of keeping him around, this just seems like you're comfortable spinning your tires.
And along with building the team, let's be honest, there have been a lot of people have questioned them building the team, and that's just not Marvin Lewis, that's Mike Brown as well. They're taking some chances on some guys that other teams weren't going to try, right? That had some issues, and they have basically come out and said, we believe in giving second chances. Some people applaud them for it, and some people say, why are you taking some of these guys? Vontez Burfict, a guy who would have been a first rounder, but had all kinds of problems. Now, he has been great at times on the field, but we know the issues that he has to staying on the field. Joe Mixon was the latest one with them. Pac-Man Jones, with issues as well, and on that they've done with that as well. So some people applaud them for it, and some people say, why are you going down that road? But at the end of it all, this is professional sports, man. This is winning. And in 15 years, you haven't done it in the playoffs. I'm really surprised at this one. I can understand Cincinnati fans. I can't imagine there's a high percentage that are happy about this. I imagine there's a very low percentage. But what you said, Trey, and I agree with, let's kind of really try and dive into this and say, okay, was this, if you really look at it, did they not have someone else in mind? Is this the right thing to do for another couple of years? I have a hard time even digging down into it saying, this is the right thing to do. I'm very surprised at this.
It is. Yeah, I agree. Look, I don't think there's another coach in another city that would go 15, that could last 15 seasons without winning a playoff game. That's just not going to happen. However, nothing happens in a vacuum. And again, you go back to what they were before he got there, and they were terrible. You mentioned this is one of my favorite stats of all time. You mentioned the longevity with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Just so people understand, since Chuck Noll was hired in 1969, there have been 3 Steelers head coaches. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. Over that same time frame, we've had 4 popes.
Yep.
Okay, that tells you quite a bit. Okay, about the stability.
And I
of
love
what we're
that.
talking about. It's amazing.
I love that. But the difference is those guys have won. Those guys have had
all 3
bad
of those
times.
Guys went to Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls, and won at least one. Exactly. So there's a big difference here.
Right.
Look,
Pope never won a Super Bowl.
Well. No. Yeah, but he won some other things.
Did.
So the hard thing with Marvin is that, you do believe that he instituted a culture change, but it still hasn't resulted in the wins that we now measure success by in the NFL. And that's the thing that's been missing from his resume. So it does leave you like, I get it, but I still think that we should be better. I mean, do we believe now, with that Marvin Lewis is back, they're going to be able to compete with the Pittsburgh Steelers, assuming Ben Roethlisberger is back in 2018, and they'll compete with the Baltimore Ravens, who gacked one away at home to the Bengals that allowed the Buffalo Bills to walk into the playoffs? Do we believe, as this team is currently constructed, with Marvin Lewis coming back for another year, that they'll be in the hunt for the AFC North?
No, I believe the Baltimore Raven fans and the Pittsburgh Steelers fans are saying, cool, good. We know what we have in the Cincinnati Bengals now. We know we should be better than them.
Hell, even the Cleveland Browns are probably looking at them like, you're not even trying. Like, at worst, at least we're doing things. We're bad, but we know it, and we're going to whatever lengths we need to. It may not always work, but hell, if I'm a Cleveland fan, I can look and say, we may not always know what we're doing, but at least we look like we're trying.
Yeah. This one, I'll use the word befuddled.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. Again, this could be the most classic, love the guy, respect the guy, but I just don't know why they're not trying to shake things up there in Cincinnati.
Well, especially when you look, Cleveland has tried this a million times and it hasn't worked.
Right.
They have the 1st and the 4th pick in the draft.
They do.
And, it's all set up for them. Whoever gets that thing turned around, it's an interesting situation in Cleveland because I think they picked up a couple of decent players. Myles Garrett looked like when he was on the field was very healthy and looked like he could play. If Josh Gordon is back, now you get maybe a quarterback and maybe you get Saquon Barkley.
Listen, if you become a great player over the next few years in Cleveland, I mean a great one, and a coach that takes his team to the playoff, it's the city where the player and or coach has the best chance to get a statue made of them.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. For as bad as they have been, you can be statue worthy at a pretty low level there.
The city where the best chance to get a reaction like we just got in Buffalo probably resides. Because as much as they love the Cavs and how much that team has been successful, growing up around there, it would mean just as much, if not a little bit more, for it to be the Browns.
It's been muted a bit because of the Cavs and because the Indians are been right there as well.
The Windians.
Man, but boy, oh boy, the Browns, you just kind of, your shoulders sag, you just exhale, and you just wonder when.
Let's put it this way. You win a game next year, it's already a success.
There you go.
You win a game next year, it's already a success.
Back again.
I got to tell you one of my favorite Marvin Lewis stories of all time, and it came when he was actually the last job I think he had before he took the job with the Cincinnati Bengals. He was the defensive coordinator when Steve Spurrier was the head coach of the Washington Redskins.
Right.
And Steve obviously had just made the jump from all his success at the University of Florida before he went to South Carolina. So they're out there, I believe it's an OTA or a mini camp, and Steve, as the head coach, says, I'm going to take the offensive players and go work out on this field. Marvin, why don't you take the defensive players and go work out on this field? And Marvin sort of looks at Steve and says, Coach, we only have 53 players. We practice together.
Yeah.
a little different than the college football scenario. We have 4,628 players.
Where are the walk-ons?
Yeah, exactly. There are no preferreds here.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't have those guys.
Steve had an interesting time.
So they had to work together. We practiced together. One of my favorite stories of all time. Rolling on, Golick and Wingo. Glad you're with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. And a reminder that we will be on the road live this Monday from Hotlanta for the College Football Playoff National Championship, brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch to Progressive can save an average of $620.
And really quickly, on the road means on the road with our bus.
We got a big giant bus.
We got a bus. We got it out on Twitter yesterday. We did some things on the bus, but people saw the bus. It's very cool, and it is on its way to Atlanta as we speak.
And I'd like to say, because our giant faces are on the bus, we understand if you want to throw rotten vegetables.
Please don't do that, though, because the bus driver is the one that has to clean
cool dude.
it.
He'll have to worry about that.
He's a really nice guy.
But giant shots of our heads, HD is not our friend.
Not our friend at
I just
all.
want, going back to what Junior was talking about in our advanced, decrepit state.
Yeah.
HD is not our friend on that bus.
Does not look good.
It does not look good.
Yeah. So I'm 28 and HD is not my friend. So
that's a separate issue. I didn't want to get into. I'm glad you brought it up. I
hope someone
there.
tags me with hair on that bus.
It's a cool bus that we're very excited to be on the road with, have everybody see it and kind of hang out with us.
And everywhere we go on the road, that bus will be there. So we're looking forward to that. First stop will be Atlanta. And, of course, the two teams in the national championship game, it's an SEC title game in the city where they had the SEC championship game. Mm-hmm. It'll be Alabama taking on Georgia. And Nick Saban is already disgruntled. By the way, I'm stealing a line from Michael Scott in The Office. Has anybody ever been gruntled?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't understand how the word disgruntled.
Disgruntled.
You have to be gruntled to put a dis in front of it, like associated, disassociated, appointed, disappointed. I don't understand, but anyway, Nick Saban is disgruntled. He's talking about the difficulty of coming off a bowl game late at night with only 7 days to prepare. Quote, someone has to think about the players, Saban said, and not what's convenient for the media or TV.
Well,
your thoughts?
They spent the night in New Orleans because they got out of there so late after the game that they spent the night and then traveled. They have a couple of injuries they're dealing with. I heard you this morning on yours, so I'll let you go, Mike, on this one. I thought I'm just going to agree with everything you said about Saban's intention and what he really means.
Yeah, Saban wants to strive to be the most prepared version of himself possible. And so while I appreciate the notion that this is about the kids, this is about Nick wanting to be able to control everything. Now, that being said, if we're looking for someone to help us put a fine-tooth comb through the college football playoff process, no one understands it better than him. He's been in it every year, and in going back to the BCS, he used that time period too. So he'd kind of be the guy I would ask for suggestions.
That I would agree with, but saying it's, remember when he was talking about it, and we say it about him because he was really the only one, or one of the, and he's the monster name out there. When the fast pace of the game, he was saying we got to do something about that. There's too many plays. It's going to lead to injury. And we were like, come on. And they're they run up tempo now as well. So let's ease up on this is for the players. I'm sure there's some thought process of the players, and basically it's get healthy because they had a couple of guys that were nicked up in this game. So I don't want to sit here, and we don't want to sit here and say he has no thought for the players at all. I don't want to say that. But a lot of it is about the proper preparation for this game.
Well, look, it's also about some injuries that he's had. They had some more injuries to the linebacking core, which has taken a lot of hits over the season at Alabama. But let's be fair, nothing happens in a vacuum. It was just a year ago where I believe Nick Saban said, hey, winning your conference championship should matter in getting into the playoffs.
Right.
And this year, because he didn't, they lobbied quite hardly that, hey, you don't need your conference championship to make it into the playoffs.
What fits at the time, huh?
That's exactly right. And it proved out he was right. They went out there and no one can say that Alabama wasn't one of the top four teams that deserved to be in.
I agree.
Look what they did to Clemson. They absolutely choked that team down. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's the SEC championship. It's going to be about the ratings, and the ratings are going to be bad. I'm not so sure about that. The numbers came out for the semifinals, and they were off the charts. I believe the Oklahoma-Georgia game, 27 million viewers, and I believe that Alabama-Clemson had 22 million with a very late start.
Now, will this be the highest-rated championship game? No, I don't believe it, but I don't believe it's going to be the lowest either. I do understand it's SEC-heavy without question, but I still think the ratings are going to be pretty good for this.
I feel like the ratings are just going to be bad in the state of Florida more than anything else.
Yeah, how about it?
That's
there may be a boycott in the central portion of that state.
Oh, you're talking about University of Central
Florida?
Okay. Well, look, they went 13-0. They went undefeated. Good for them. And Danny White appeared on their AD appeared on the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Gatz, and he's saying, hey, man, we should be there. We're just as good as anybody.
I am trying to change the process for 2018 and beyond. The playoffs should expand. We need at least 8 teams. I think we need to go back to the rankings that we had in the BCS era. In years in the BCS era where schools like us had 0 or 1 losses, they were ranked like in the top 5. And all of a sudden the rankings have changed, and I think that there's a bias against schools outside of what we currently call the Power 5. But we feel strongly we're in a Power 6 conference. Our league is not respected enough. There's some really tough football in our league. You know, we played teams as good or better than Auburn in our own conference.
Okay, that one hurt.
Are we buying that one?
He was going good for a while, and then he went down a bad road. To say we play teams, meaning UCF, as good as Auburn plays in their conference. UCF's strength of schedule is 86. Auburn was 12. It's just not true. And as far as my thought process, you want to get rid of 13 individuals who are giving their opinion on who the 4 best are? Go back to the BCS system. Go back to all computers, 1 human poll, and figure out the top 4 or top 8 that way. And you know what? We did that. And we had the top 8 after the conference championships. Hembo printed it up for us. What the simulated BCS says, if we had an 18 playoff, UCF, number 9.
Oy.
They would be just on the outside looking in. So you heard Danny White say, let's go back, with that system, there was no ambiguity.
And expand the playoffs.
They would be number 9. Now, I think because of what they did, if they went ahead this next season and did it again, they may be in because of where they would start.
But they'd have to run the table again.
They would.
And by the way, if you were looking for an 8-team playoff, it would have the exact same 8 teams that were in the top 8. Different order, but the exact same 8 teams that we had in the final 8 for the college football committee.
That's the fascinating part.
Yeah, it is.
It's really the same teams just put up in a different order. Now, look, all of this is taking nothing away from the remarkable turnaround. And we should be clear about that. A remarkable turnaround. They went 0-12 2 years ago, and then they go 13-0. It was over 50 players, I believe, that were on that 0-12 team that somehow got to 13-0. So you can't take anything away from it. And I'm with you. And Junior, you've been about this. Hey, claim that national championship. Put up the banner. I get it. But you lost me when you say you have the same strength of schedule as Auburn. It's not true.
Or that you play teams as good or better than Auburn in your conference every year, like what, Navy?
Yeah,
USF? Memphis?
South Florida did go 10-2.
South Florida had a good year. Memphis
went 10-3.
But it's not, as I said, the strength of schedule, there's a formula for that, 86-12. I mean, he just went too far there. They had a great year. I know the Le Batard show, Dan had a bunch of fun saying be the national champ and all that, and they had a great year, so you don't ever want to sound like you're taking away from that. But the
numbers are what the numbers are.
They weren't going to be in the top 4. So they shouldn't have been in the top 4.
We get it. We understand their frustration. We understand why they feel that way, but the numbers would still have them short even if they did expand to 8. By the way, that was Straight Talk Wireless nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Junior, thanks for being with us this morning. Appreciate you. I've given him some homework. We'll see if he comes back with it tomorrow. Coming up, John Gruden will join us. We'll talk about the wild card and maybe a team that may be leaving and heading to Vegas.